Looks like we're live. Welcome back, you guys. So glad to be tuning in with you. So glad to be bringing you this Quarantine All Stars Masterclass series. I know the name changes a little bit each day. And that's also because I'm not going to keep it called that. I'm not going to focus on this weird quarantine situation for too much longer. I am, however, going to focus on continually bringing you guys really, really high quality guests who have agreed to not only jump on and add value, but who really, in my estimation, seem to care, seem to be focused on, I don't know, doing more than making a buck. Making a buck, yes, definitely make a buck, guys. Everybody should make a buck. But, there are different ways to do that. So with that in mind, today I bring you your friendly neighborhood ads guy, Joey Morgan, with Facebook ads for the rest of us. What's happening, brother?
Not much, man. Just hanging out. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Awesome.
I was telling you a little bit in the green room, which is what I think I might start calling the pre-show because it sounds cool.
There you go.
That I'm weighed down a little bit like the rest of us by this whole sort of situation we find ourselves in. But for me personally, life hasn't changed that much, which is really surreal in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that has changed is I had been looking for a way to sort of get service even more back into what I was doing. And so the quarantine situation inspired this interview series, which has just been taking off.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
so I'm feeling really good about this. And of course, man, I'm really glad that you're here. I think you were one of the people that I actually reached out to.
Yep.
Instead of saying, I put one post out and got 2 months worth of bookings, but you and a couple other people I actually reached out to and I said, I want you on the show.
Yep. Definitely. I appreciate that. Absolutely.
For you guys that don't know, this is the first time Joey and I have actually rapped, but sometimes you can tell that somebody sort of is cut from the same cloth by how they show up. So tell us what you do, man. Tell us who you are. Like lay it down, man.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said in the introduction, I'm the friendly neighborhood Facebook ads dude. I always put that at the end of my post.
Yeah.
But I've been in the Facebook ads industry for a good 5 years.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of changes, had to adapt to a lot of different scenarios. But ultimately, man, I fell in love with marketing and fell in love with Facebook advertising because I just love data. I love numbers. I've always been a big numbers guy. Yeah. And being able to apply that side of myself and help others has just been an incredible journey and something that I've definitely loved to do.
Excellent, man. So let's say hello to a couple of people. Stephen, Jose, Louise, I'm not Jose. I'm gonna screw it up, man. And Joe Nicasio, welcome. I wasn't bold enough to try and get your full name, Jose. My apologies, brother. So I want to jump right into something a little controversial.
Okay.
In your estimation, what do most ads people do wrong? And I'm thinking mostly in how they represent their service, their business, and ads in general.
Mm-hmm. I think there's I would say a lot of overpromise. I think it's jumping right out of the gun and just a lot of overpromising.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not to say you can't set goals for people to know that you're working with, but one thing to keep in mind is that Facebook is a big testing game, right? Yeah. It's 100% data.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're jumping right off the gun and setting metrics, promising that we're going to hit this certain space,
right,
results, that's automatically a red flag.
Okay.
I think it's big to set goals and to have ideas and to try to reach a certain area. But again, with Facebook ads being a big testing game and big numbers game, and if you're new to Facebook ads, especially your business, then you don't exactly know what those metrics look like for you.
Right.
So it's really comes down to just testing the waters, seeing what results come for you, what works for you, and then going from there and then setting new goals and new metrics based off of that.
So it's maybe not so almost crystal ball and smoke and mirrors ish, right? It's my feeling, and I don't know if I'm speaking for the viewers, but my feeling is, especially when I was earlier in the game, Facebook ads people were sort of like this, like almost like a cult I couldn't get into, you know. It was really represented as this thing that only a select few understood, and it was almost something like where magic met science or something. Now I know that the absolute sort of irreducible truth of all marketing is that it's about testing.
Absolutely.
We can know some certain things, right? There are some certain things that have been true since P.T. Barnum and since you know, whatever was the earliest recorded examples of marketing we have. Human nature is one thing, but testing is always the answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're never at an end point with advertising, you know,
right.
You're never at an end point. Even if you reach a certain metric that you're happy with, you're still testing. Okay. It never stops. You never hit a point where it's just like you're satisfied or you're comfortable and you want to stay there. Because ultimately, when you hit that point of complacency, then that's when you start to fall off. That's when your results start to dip, and you stop testing. So now you're not what once was working now isn't working anymore, and you haven't been constantly testing anything new. So
there is such a thing then as like a message saturation. Is that part of what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I know that the narrative, the fable is like, especially with the Evergreen webinar, right? The fable is, if you manage to build this thing, you just let it run and boom.
Yep.
But everybody I know who actually has a successful webinar is looking at all the points that it can be tweaked.
100%.
So the ads, the copy on the ads,
funnel,
the funnel,
everything,
the webinar itself, all the mechanical pieces that connect together, and they're evaluating all the time. I had a guy once, sort of one of those high level marketers, tell me, and I thought this was really potent. He said, "The game we're in is the game of constant incremental improvement. That's the game we play."
I like that. Yep, 100%.
Would you agree with that?
100%.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the great success stories you've had with people, because I'd really love to know that.
Yeah, 100%. There's been I can give past some examples here. There's been a couple people that I've brought on that have been fairly new. They've never run ads before, so everything from start to finish has never been tested in advertising.
Okay.
Their funnel, their ads, their ad copy. Now, when I typically start with somebody like this, I always emphasize, allow a period of time for testing, because everything that we're doing from here on out is just trial and error.
Right.
So we're trying to constantly test. We're not only having to test the funnel side of things, but now we're having to find those winning ads that are going to bring results. We got to find that winning ad copy, that winning creative, those winning audiences, and we're testing several different elements at one time.
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest successes that I've had is a client that they've never done any of this. And they're actually a local client of mine here in my local area. But they did I think it was before they started with me, it was around maybe 10 leads a month. And they're a wedding venue.
Yeah.
And I don't typically work with like brick and mortar businesses. This was, she's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
She came to me for help, and I wanted to help her out. And so they didn't do very many leads a month. And once they started, we had a consistent lead flow coming from their funnel, their ads. As soon as we got out of that testing phase and we found some things that worked that we ran with, we had a consistent amount of leads. They did, 5 figures a month, all just based off that, which is more than what they were doing before because they were so new.
Nice.
So it was a big success. She thanked me from the bottom of her heart, and that's what I love to see the most, is like the emotional side of things. When you deliver results like that, and you see somebody just is ecstatic about what's happening in their business. That's what drives me to keep going, and keeps me motivated.
Yeah, very good. Do you think that Facebook is sort of working against the little guy running ads or for the little guy running ads? I'm asking this, right? Because there are a lot of people, myself included at times, who are just like, you know what? I'm just going to get so good at organic because I'm just so done with Facebook ads. So what's your thoughts there?
In terms of the little guy, what do you mean by little guy? Like, what would be an example?
Small budgets.
Like small budgets. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes and no. I think there's two sides of that, of having a small budget. One, you can't really test aggressively as what some might want to, right? And what I mean by that is how I kind of set up my Facebook structures is, if we're testing new audiences, okay, I like to test several different audiences at one time on a micro budget level. Okay. So, and that could mean I could set up 40 different ad sets with, each individual audience. Okay. Right. Now it may not be 40 different audiences. It could be, 20 different audiences, but at different placements, so that, and that's the aggressive side of testing. So I guess on a smaller budget, you wouldn't be able to test as aggressive or as fast as you wanted to, but that's not to say that you can't find what works. It may take longer, or you may get lucky and find something that works. But at the same time, with that smaller budget, it's hard to test aggressively and quickly,
right,
when you don't have the budget to do so.
Okay. That brings me to a more, maybe a tactical question, but first I want to talk about this Facebook feature that you're always talking about and warning people they need to get ready for. I don't know what it's called, but it's where you let Facebook do the CBO, campaign budget optimization, right?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, talk to me about that, man. You've got some strong feelings about that.
I do. I'm very passionate about CBO.
Yeah, so let us know what's up. What is it, and then why do you care?
So the opposite of CBO is just the ad set budgets. So where you could set up an individual ad set, and that ad set would have its own particular budget. So say you wanted to run a campaign with several different ad sets in it, you could run each ad set at like $10 a day or $15 a day or whatever you want to set it to. CBO takes the budget from the ad set part of things and moves it to the campaign level. Okay, so if you have a campaign budget optimization campaign running and you have 4 ad sets in that campaign, what Facebook's going to do is take that budget and spread it amongst all of those ad sets that you have in that campaign. So they're not going to have a specific amount of budget per ad set, but what Facebook's going to do is optimize, and that's why they have it set campaign budget optimization, is they're going to optimize that campaign budget in those ad sets and find which ad set's going to perform the best for you.
Yeah.
And take that budget and throw the majority of that budget towards that ad set. So essentially that's what CBO does.
So I heard somebody else say this is not my own description. So if it sounds smart, all credit to Dennis Yu for this, actually. He says that, especially for the little guy, the algorithm has gotten so good that you can now let Facebook do almost all the work for you.
Yes, and that's a direction that Facebook is looking to take. So they've really updated their machine learning to optimize and take control and go out and find the best results possible for you. Okay, and that's where a CBO can kind of come in, and also dynamic ads. I mean, we can get into dynamic in a second, but CBO, they really just want you to give Facebook that control, and set it to automatic placements. Let Facebook go out and find those conversions for you.
Yeah.
because Facebook's algorithm is smarter than anybody advertising combined.
Smarter than we are.
Yeah. Anybody that's on Facebook combined, it's way, way smarter.
Yeah.
And so it's tracking and knows where to go to find those conversions for you.
Right.
If you give it the proper data it needs.
Okay.
And that's where your part as the advertiser comes in, is giving that Facebook that information that it needs. How
do we find that information initially?
Yeah. And that would be coming down to the Facebook pixel, allowing the pixel to track those types of people that are converting for you.
Okay.
Right. And allowing Facebook to optimize with those people and go out and find more just like them.
So does that mean that we cannot or should not jump into campaign budget optimization until our pixel is a little bit, we call it matured, right?
Yeah. In the past, there was a term called seasoning your pixel.
Seasoning. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, not so much.
Okay.
It's you can really allow Facebook to just, you can give Facebook the information it needs just based off your targeting, and going to try to find the people that you want to bring in.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't necessarily have to season your pixel anymore. Now with the pixel and building lookalike audiences, if Facebook's bringing in all of these people and they're converting, and you're getting your ideal prospect, your ideal audience, then you can start building lookalike audiences and telling Facebook, hey, I want more people just like the people you brought in.
Right.
Okay? And you start testing that in CBOs and just letting Facebook go out and just find more and more and more people.
Okay. So all of this assumes that people have at least a passing familiarity with the concept of ads and how to run them.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm going to try to reduce our conversation today down to anything more basic than that. This is going to be for people who have just the compulsory entry level amount of knowledge. What would you tell somebody stepwise as an actual strategy who wants to kind of run ads? Let's say that you've got an offer that you've sold organically. It's past some level of validation, right? That it converts.
Yep.
Now the next step is, well, I'd like to run some ads and see if I can, scale it. How would you coach somebody to start that whole process? And also, if you could tell about, an estimated kind of budget they should expect to have and stuff like that would be great.
100%. Yeah, I have 3 phases to that.
Okay.
And it kind of, these 3 phases kind of help you work up to that point of scaling. It starts you from the very bottom of just testing new audiences and new pockets of people, to verifying them and then scaling them up in CBO campaigns. Okay. So if you're getting started with ads and you're wanting to start testing new audiences, testing the waters with ads, what you want to do is do the research and kind of compile a list of interests that you believe that your target audience would be in. Okay. And I kind of touched on this earlier, but the phase 1 of all of this is taking those interests and testing them individually in several different ad sets, right? So just for example purposes, if you're in the fitness industry, okay, and you're wanting to target, say, GNC, which is a supplement store, okay, and you think your ideal prospect is in that area, so then you would test GNC by itself in one ad set, okay, and test it like to different places. So ad set 1 would be GNC to automatic placements. Ad set 2 could be GNC to mobile. Ad set 3 could be GNC to feeds. Okay. So not only are you testing that new audience, but you're testing where you're getting the results from.
And when you say where, you're talking about literally like what device they're seeing you on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Important to understand.
Yeah. It's just more information for you to work up to scale upon. So that's, and you can take that example and just multiply it, right? So you have 3 ad sets of GNC. Now, if you want to move on to another audience, you could do supplement superstore. Okay. They're called S2. So you could do supplement superstore, again, automatic placements, supplement superstore on feeds, and then mobile. So now you have 6 ad sets with 2 audiences. Okay. So you're testing these individually because you want to know if these audiences show some sort of promise, if they're going to bring you some results. If you start stacking these audiences too early, you don't know where your conversions or your audience is coming from. You don't know if they're coming from GNC
Right.
or if they're coming from Supplement Superstore. You know, so the point of this is to just test individually, test these audiences, see if if they're going to bring you some promise. And you want to do this on a micro budget level. Okay. And I'm talking,
What's a micro budget?
you could do like $5 a day on
Okay.
these audiences, 3 to 5 even.
Okay.
But the point of this phase one is not to you're not going to get tons and tons of results out of this. Okay. Not off that budget. What the point of phase one is to find promise. Okay. If you have an audience that's going to bring you some promise that says it has potential to bring you results. Okay. Then if you start seeing, leads come through, you're starting to get good metrics that you're wanting to hit, then you can start, I call it phase two, where I would duplicate. Okay. So out of phase one, I would duplicate this audience, put it into a new campaign, label it my phase two, and I would put a higher budget on that ad set. And then I would probably introduce another ad because I want to verify this, right?
Okay.
So I'm giving this audience a higher budget. I'm going to introduce another ad so I can verify.
Yeah.
Okay. Goes from phase one to testing, phase two to verifying. Okay. So in phase one, let's just say GNC. Okay. Yep. GNC showed me some promise. It's saying, hey, I have potential to bring you results. I'm going to take the GNC, I'm going to duplicate it, right? Even if it was feeds, mobile, automatic placements, wherever placement it was, I'm going to duplicate that, put it into my phase two with a higher budget, new ad. And what's going to happen is I look at it as a pocket of people. Okay. In phase one, it found this pocket of people. Okay. Now I'm duplicating it, putting it in phase two. It's probably going to go find another pocket of people somewhere.
Right.
Okay. So if it finds another pocket of people and it's continuing to bring me results, I've now verified this audience. It's continuing to crush it.
Right.
So now I want to work on some scaling strategies. I want to figure out how I can scale this audience. Okay. And that brings me into phase three, which is CBO. Okay. So now I have tested this audience. I have verified it. Now I want to take this GNC audience, put it in a CBO campaign. I'll duplicate it a few times. I typically run 3 to 4 ad sets in a CBO campaign. I don't go more than that. But I'll test GNC inside that CBO campaign. And there's different ways you can do this. And I'm not going to say there's a right or wrong because it's ultimately a testing game.
Sure.
But there have been times where I've taken GNC, duplicated 3 times, and I've not touched it. I didn't change any of those ad sets. I kept them all the same. Okay. Then there have been times where I've taken that GNC audience and I maybe have changed some placements or changed something inside of it. It's all a testing game and figure out what's going to work. But just for example purposes, we duplicated out of phase two, put it into a CBO campaign, duplicated 3 or 4 times, and we're allowing Facebook to really just take control and to optimize and go find more people just like the people that already converted for me.
Okay. Got it.
So it's a bit, I mean, if you're getting started with ads, that's kind of the process that I follow. I go from phase one, testing, micro budgets, phase two, verify it, higher budget, new ad, phase three, CBO.
So what's the low end of the verification level budgets?
Yeah, so that's a verify.
Yeah.
Probably 15.
Okay. So none of this is maybe before you get working your way up to CBO, none of this is really kind of as expensive as perhaps people are thinking.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
This is good to know, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, it comes down to, don't stress yourself out and feel like you have to throw a ton of money at advertising and ton of money starting out the gate, because you don't necessarily have to.
Right.
You can start off with those micro budgets and then just test, $5 a day, $3 a day on different ad sets.
Yeah.
And just find what's going to bring the most promise for you. Okay. And then from there, if you start to find that and you want to verify and you start getting results, now you're getting conversions. Okay. And then you can just reinvest those conversions into ads and just scale up.
Yeah. So one of the sort of the magic sort of boxes to check is if you start getting conversions at the low level, it is no longer an it's no longer a cost, it's an investment, right?
100%. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome, man. Well, so I I think this is really helpful for people. I think we've got kind of like how you can go from not having done it before to really getting yourself to that level where it's like, okay, we're going to test CBO here. Do you feel like if people follow this test, verify phase 1 and phase 2, by the time they get to CBO, have you seen any surprises that would stop it from being sort of a sure thing that they could get an ROI from their spend? Or is it pretty reliable at that point?
It can go both ways, to be transparent. Okay. I mean, it really can. You know, there is no direct answer to that. It's really, again, with Facebook ads being the testing game that it is, it just comes down to exactly that, testing. Sure. Now you provide yourself, and I'm huge on predictability.
Yeah.
Okay? So, but following that, if you're testing and then verifying, you're giving yourself some sort of predictability with your ads. Even if you go into CBO and it just tanks, you didn't go in blind. Okay, you still gave yourself a little bit of predictability leading up to CBO and scaling those audiences and ad sets. So, and I think that's a big thing, because again, it's a data game, not an emotion game. And I want to point that out, because I see a lot of marketers or just business owners in general, they allow their emotions to get involved with Facebook advertising. And if you do that, you're going to lose to numbers every single time. Okay. If you work off gut feeling, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
It's just like the stock market. You can't get emotionally involved in the stock market, right? If you get emotionally involved, then you're going to lose, because it's all about numbers. The number, like your metrics, the data that you're gathering through these 3 phases is going to tell you everything you need to know.
Do you find that that's maybe one of the hardest parts for people?
100%.
Yeah. Yep. It has been for me in the past. I can validate that from my own experience in the past. It's it's been very, I think the people that are successful really in all of marketing, the common refrain from all people who I've talked to who understand marketing is dispassionate testing.
Yep.
We will have, for instance, a tendency when creating, especially our first ad sets, right, to really fall in love with a picture or a headline, right, and sort of refuse to accept that it's not really sort of taking hold the way we, feel it should and thought it would, and so you got to just let. When I teach people how to use boosted content to grow their audience, it's the same thing. People criticize the crap out of their early videos. And my response is always the same. You don't get a say. You have no say in what your audience likes.
100%.
You put it out and you let them tell you.
Yep.
It's the exact same thing, isn't it?
100%. I absolutely agree with that. It's just, again, you got to test and just figure out and just do your research, right? And one thing I like to, a little tip that I like to give everybody is, look at your clientele now. Okay. So look at the clientele that you have before you get ready to start running ads. Go onto their profiles, look at their likes. You can go on their likes tab, and you can see, everything that they have interest in. And that's information.
Interesting.
That's information that you can use with Facebook ads. Okay, their profile. And typically when I get involved and I start doing research with for like clientele that signs on, I go on to their clients' profiles and I want to know everything about their clients, all the way down to what they argue about at the dinner table.
How does that inform what you do?
Yeah. And so again, it's their profile has information. So like I can look at movies they like, magazines they like, celebrities, public figures, everything. I can see absolutely everything that they have interest in. And all of that is information I can use for targeting. Or I can find sub interest based off those. It kind of just depends.
I get that research is important, and I get that you can use it for targeting. I think the disconnect for me and hopefully for other people might be how. I think that's something that's probably so second nature to you. Once we find out that this person likes Ford trucks and Fight Club and they like Reeboks and not Nikes and all of those things, how do we let that teach us? Like, what do we know that we can then use? How do we implement that knowledge?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And so ultimately you're looking for something that shows a little bit of relevancy with your clients, right?
Okay.
I mean, now, that's not to say you can go onto their profile. You can go on their profile and see a ton of things they like, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those likes or what they show interest in is going to be relevant to who you're trying to target.
Exactly.
Okay. So ultimately it comes down to digging a little deeper. Okay. If you find something like, say it's like a public figure that they show interest in, that's could be relative to who you're trying to target. Okay. You can dig a little deeper into that. So what is something relative to that public figure, like a company or a magazine or like, you know, you could dig really deep into that and find that information that could be targetable on Facebook if it's large enough.
Okay. So that's it right there, right? What we're looking for in that sort of client research is interests that Facebook has aggregated into an option that you can use in your targeting.
Yeah, and that audience size is large enough for you to use.
That scratches the itch right there. I think that's the part that a lot of people don't get, right? We all know that research is important. Not many of us actually know how to do it.
Yeah.
And then of the ones that know how to do it, I think, you know, a lot of us don't know how to then implement it. So
yeah, 100%. And there's other tools you can use too, like Facebook's audience insights. You can use that, Google Trends. You can use Google Trends. There's different tools that you can use to do research, but definitely just digging into current clients has always been a big thing for me.
Nice, man. I'm gonna stop it right there because I think you've given a nice stepwise action item oriented kind of a how-to here, dude. That's thank you so much, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me. Thanks for reaching out too.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. It's been great to connect with you, Joey. Guys, obviously, if you've heard what we're talking about here and you just don't want to do it yourself, send Joey a message. Send Joey a message. Hire him.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I'd be happy to help you out, even if it's just if you have questions. You know, my DMs are always open. Just shoot it on over. I'll be happy just to, you know, give you some point of direction or just a ground to stand on.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, Facebook ads, they are like a scientific way of doing things, and it can be confusing and sometimes overwhelming when you're diving in. So even if you just want that solid ground to stand on, feel free, and I'll help you out.
Super generous, brother. All right, man. Thank you so much.
You bet.